Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to add the elements and give them these IDs. Add a span tag and give it an ID of error first name, error last name, error email, and error password. We're going to do that inside the signup.php. We go to the page and we're going to place it beneath the input fields for each of the elements. So the reason why we're putting it here, because if we go to our page, we click on the sign up, we want it to appear beneath this input field. So we go back here, so we're going to type span hash, then name of the ID we gave it inside the red.js, which is error email. We'll press the tab to automatically complete it. Then the next is going to be span hash error first name. Then we do span hash error last name. Then for the password, it's going to be span hash error password. We save our file. Now we've created the elements and they have the IDs we used inside the red.js file. The next thing to do is we need to give it a CSS style. We want every element that we appear inside the span tag to have a color of red. So we go to the custom.css file. Now inside this custom.css file, we call the IDs and give them a color of red. So the first one we are going to call is with the hash sign. We call it error email. Then we are putting all the IDs on one line instead of just putting them separately because they have the same property. So we separate them by comma. The next is going to be error first name, error last name, error password. We're going to give it the property of color red. Then we save it. Now let's go back to our signup.php. So now every element that will appear here will have a color of red. Now the next thing we need to do is that if we go to our browser, we refresh and we try to submit, we see that the page will refresh. The reason is, and we can't see the errors. So what we need to do is, when we need to go back and use a method called prevent default in JQuery. What that method does is, when this click function is called, the action will not be triggered. So we are just doing that to test and see the errors that were created. So to do that, we pass a parameter inside the callback function of the click event, which we can use value e. Then we go down, we e dot prevent default. We call the function prevent default. Now if you go back, you will notice that we've not called the red.js file inside the index.php. So if we go to our browser and try to submit, nothing will happen because we don't have the red.js file, that is the JavaScript file, inside the index.php. So we call that using the script tag. So for JavaScript file, we use script tags. So inside the second anchor tag, we put an src, then we use it to call or access the folder where we have the red.js. We do that by /, then we see the folder js which has the red.js file. Now we've called the restriction.js file inside the index.php. Now what we need to do is to go to our browser and test it out. So we refresh, we click on the sign up page, then when we click on submit button, now we see that we have the errors because the input fields are empty. That was what we specified in the validation or the custom validation that we created. Now if we refresh and try to fill one or two of the input fields, put in dummy values, then for the first name we put, then when we click on the submit, we see that the error for the first name and the email did not appear because the input field contains some values, but for the last name and the password, they are empty, so it's displayed the error messages. So in the next video, what we are going to do is we are going to continue with the validation.